Dorian Blake, a brilliant but eccentric book hunter and self-confessed bibliomaniac, heads the small firm Blake Associates Literary Investigations in San Francisco. From their loft-style office on Clementina Street, Dorian and his teammates track missing manuscripts, authenticate dubious discoveries, and navigate a shadow world of collectors, auction sharks, and occult bibliophiles. Each case is a mystery whose solution hinges on deep book lore, forensic bibliography, and treacherous human motives. Episode 2. Ink and Bullet Holes, Blake and Associates Loft, San Francisco. Monday, 10:07 a.m. Wind swept the Embarcadero, rattling cargo chains like distant tambourines and rolling the smell of brine into an old cannery converted into Blake and Associates. In that vast brick hollow, daylight slanted through mullioned windows and ignited flecks of dust that pirouetted above polished concrete. Dorian Blake stood at a central work table, a salvaged railroad cargo door balanced on iron sawhorses, and drummed his Mont Blanc Meisterstück against a paste-paper ledger dated 1893. Tap, tap. Pause. 16 feet to the bricks, 16 back. The room's acoustics chambered in his chest like a second heartbeat. Rolling stacks of books ringed the space. Incunabula bound in calf, lurid dime novels, samizdat mimeos, titles in Sanskrit, Braille and cuneiform, every spine a secret passport. But the middle bay resembled a laboratory, fume hood breathing like a tame dragon, desiccation chambers blinking green, and a drum scanner the size of a dishwasher hunched in a respectful crouch. The symphony of machines made conversation feel illicit, as if the books themselves might overhear. Meera Patel, eyes shielded by amber goggles, teased a strip of salt-stiffened leather with bamboo tongs. She spoke in a low, melodic register born of Mumbai monsoons and MIT lecture halls. Lux tenebris, boardliner. The Pacific did its worst. Chloride crystallization everywhere. One more week in the humidity dome, and I can start consolidating the spine. Behind dual-curved monitors, Liu Jiang ruled a citadel of code and caffeine. RGB LEDs pulsed around his desk like tidal zones, washing his face in cerulean one moment, magenta the next. He'd slept 3 hours, but his movements were quicksilver. "Heads up," he said, flicking a trackball so fast the pointer blurred. "Ping on the Book Hunter hotline. Mil-spec encryption, no sender meta, single dot TIFF. Big file for a single page." Dorian arched an eyebrow. "Project." He flicked a key. The wall-sized micro-LED panel woke, blossoming from black to a blaze of pixels. A typewritten title snapped into focus. S.L. Clemens. True Story of a River Duel, 1872. 93 pages marched below, but it was the first sheet that arrested them. Margins narrow, lines ragged, pitch unmistakably 10 characters per inch elite. Near the footer bled a russet nebula, a stain as dark as dried roses. Meera leaned in, heart thumping. Oxidized hemoglobin. That black edge means high iron, little preservative. We're talking at least a century old, probably more. Clara Reyes rolled a ladder away from an upper mezzanine. White streak threaded her raven bob. Her voice carried the lilt of New Mexico Badlands. "And look at the subject line." She tapped Leo's inbox, where block capitals glowed. "Prove he was murdered. Clear my family." That's a plea, not a sales pitch. Dorian's brows rose like theater curtains. "Sam Clemens in the crosshairs? My curiosity just woke up hungry." He grabbed a scarred leather folio, thick with blank vellum sheets. "We start with groundwork. Meera, sample capture protocol AB7, non-destructive only. Leo, full metadata scrape. Clara, you and I will charm the San Francisco History Center. Dress library respectable, no sidearms showing." Clara patted the blazer, hiding her service pistol. "Library respectable it is." San Francisco History Center, main library. Monday, 11:40 a.m. They arrived just before the noon chimes. Under a vast Tiffany glass dome, motes drifted like ancient spores. Archivists crept between walnut tables where patrons whispered, pens tethered by strings like cautious pets. At an oversized map case, Dorian donned cotton gloves and unfurled brittle sheets of the Daily Alta California. Headlines from 1872 shrieked about railroad strikes, riverboat boiler blasts, and a Comstock silver collapse, but Mira's gloved finger halted on a 1-inch column bordered by hairline rules. Mysterious duel at Dead Man's Bend. Colonel J.D. McAllister succumbs, witnesses silent. Dorian's breath caught. He raised a Canon macro lens, silent mode, no flash, and photographed the article in segments. First local mention I've ever seen of San Pablo Bay dueling culture, he muttered. This isn't Mississippi River law. It's Bay Area blood. Mira annotated the margin with acid-free flags. If Twain typed a memoir, he had a reason. Confession, blackmail fodder, maybe guilt. The Mississippi haunted him, but he loved a good hoax too. Dorian's grin was quick, knife-bright. Or his conscience poking through cigar smoke. Above them, a clock chimed noon. Dorian gathered the flagged articles, thanked the archivist, and slipped into the marble corridor where light pooled like mercury. He felt a familiar prickle at the base of his skull, the sense that a story long buried had chosen him as custodian. Nob Hill townhouse of Charles McAllister III. Monday, 2:15 p.m. The townhouse perched on Jones Street, so steep a visiting senator once declined dessert rather than climb it. Inside, beeswax and old rye scented the foyer. Charles McAllister III, last vibrating echo of railroad thunder, waited beneath portraits of ancestors cradling locomotives like newborns. Gold cufflinks winked beneath parchment-thin veins, his voice rasped like gravel in a gold pan. I received the same image, he said before greetings were done. Seller wants 7 figures. Meeting tomorrow night. Venue? His lips tightened. Dead Man's Curve. Historic ironies overrated. Clara's gaze snagged on a Remington No. 1 under a jeweler's bonnet. Functional. McAllister's mouth crooked. Carbon ribbons new. I typed Christmas tags. Felt whimsical. Took half an hour. Worth it for the kids' faces. He slid a retainer check the color of bone across a slab of polished onyx. Confirm the memoir's real before I'm robbed blind, or worse, cancelled by my own archives board. Either possibility gives my cardiologist palpitations. Dorian pocketed the check. We'll need your Remington slug registry, keystroke imprint images, any service documentation. Scanned. McAllister's glass of Templeton rye clinked. And Blake. My ancestors paid for silence once. I'm done buying ghosts. If the truth damns us, so be it. Just don't let me fund another forgery. Bancroft Library, UC Berkeley. Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Morning sunlight gilded the travertine stairs. Inside Bancroft's climate-locked vault, curator Evelyn Evie Archer waited in nitrile gloves and a blazer scented faintly of lavender sachet, a trick, she confided, to remind under-caffeinated grad students that archives are gardens, not locker rooms. Twain's travel diary from 1868, she said, setting a suede-cushioned cradle beneath crackly paper. Ink is iron gall. Try not to blink too hard. Leo spread his tablet, overlaying font metrics, ascenders, counters, cap heights, while Mira mic'd the page with a laser micrometer. 0.08 millimeters, she breathed. Classic onion skin. Watermark reads Amalgamated Pulp Company, St. Louis, 1871. Scarce, not unique, used for gubernatorial letterheads. A Teams window bloomed on a side screen. Professor Giles Harrow, Oxford's apostle of codicology, cardigan fraying like sea foam. Earliest Twain typescript we had, he said, arching an eyebrow so ragged it seemed inked, was 4th January 1874, a letter lamenting railway sandwiches and praising celery tonic. Confirm your document, and print culture gets new birthday candles. Evie angled a fiber optic light. Zoom here. Radial scorch marks surrounding the blood fleck. Not coffee. Close-range powder burns. Clara's phone vibrated. Unknown ID. She stepped aside, but everyone heard the tiny ding. The text glowed. Meet Solo. Dead Man's Curve. Midnight. Attached, photo of a jade green '68 Mustang, her late father's pride, stolen in 2017. Her sternum tightened as if laced. She typed nothing. Silence, she decided, could be a louder answer. Leo's cyber nest, Bancroft lower level. Fluorescent tubes hummed above wire racks and humming servers. Leo devoured an energy bar while fingers flew. Email hopped a Russian bulletproof host, ricocheted through Greenland, popped from a Tor exit in Marin. Not sloppy, but rushed. They reused a handshake certificate from a defunct darknet marketplace. He smiled, dark eyes sparking. My backyard. Dorian leaned over the chair. Pull Marin Sonoma cell tower pings tonight. Burner phones love pattern repetition. Any with 4 a.m. latency spikes, flag 'em. Leo scribbled a neon sticky note, a TT subpoena, Ortega, and slapped it on his monitor. Consider it done, O Captain. Dead Man's Curve, Highway 37. Tuesday, 11:57 p.m. Fog thick as chilled milk rolled off San Pablo Bay, swallowing guardrails and flattening sound. Street racers who usually drifted the hairpin had posted warnings on Discord. Cops in the tulle reeds. Tonight, the road belonged to ghosts. Clara idled the recovered Mustang under a lone sodium arc lamp. Its jade paint gleamed like wet malachite. Bodycam fed a live stream to Leo's laptop, miles away inside a battered Caltrans survey van. In her ear, Dorian murmured reassurance while adjusting the scope of a tranquilizer rifle on a decommissioned water tower. Headlights flared through fog. A midnight black Dodge Charger rolled to a stop, engine growling. Riley Boone unfolded from the driver's seat, tall, lean, jacket hanging off him like borrowed skin. He carried an archival grey box beneath a rag patched with duct tape. 50 Bitcoin, he rasped. Untraceable. The car returns, and your father's story ends here. Clara tossed a dummy hardware wallet. Boone caught it, shook it by his ear, apparently satisfied with the weight. A laser dot blossomed on his sternum. Boone's pupils shrank. Mira, poised behind a barricade, detonated a magnesium flare photography flash. Light seared the darkness. Boone yelped, knees buckling. SFPD cruisers wailed from the asphalt mouths of the curve. Officer Miriam Ortega emerged, Kevlar vest creaking, Glock leveled. On the ground! Hands where I can see! Boone knelt, hissed, McAllister, and went limp under handcuffs. Inside the archival box, the typescript lay cradled in mylar, but 5 leaves were jagged out, fibers still wet with blood. The smell, copper, salt, something older, clung to the night air. SFPD mobile command post, causeway shoulder. Generators growled. Fluorescent lanterns spilled harsh light on Boone's gaunt face. Ortega recorded on a body-worn camera. Why burn pages? Dorian asked, voice flat. Insurance. Boone's laugh cracked like ice. McAllister wanted the dual myth dead. He'd pay anything to keep the colonel saintly. I just made it bleed. Clara's jaw flexed. You stole my father's car to bait me. Boone smirked. Collateral. Families and cars. People chase what they love. You chased. I cornered. Ortega ended the recording. He sleeps in county tonight, but the puppet master's rich, lawyered, and waiting. Fog closed around the command post as though filing the night under seal. McAllister Townhouse, Nob Hill. Wednesday, 1:20 a.m. A cold wind rattled leaded windows. Dorian, Clara, and Ortega entered unannounced. Charles McAllister stood in his study, silk robe half-belted, revolver trembling in liver-spotted hand. Boone blackmailed me, he croaked. Threatened to leak the memoir. Said it proves my ancestor murdered Boons. If that story sticks, Foundation land deeds, worth millions, get clawed back. I burned the pages to end it. Clara edged toward the hearth. Charcoal lumps hissed, orange eyes blinking in ash. Mira, latex-gloved, used silver tongs to lift a scrap no larger than a postage stamp. Paper crackled like thin ice. Dorian's voice softened, almost fatherly. Fire doesn't forget, Charles. McAllister dropped the revolver. My family is the railway. The museum wing, scholarships, free clinics in 3 counties. It all rides our name. Boone pushed. I panicked. Tears tracked age spots. I never dreamed anyone else would die. But blood is contagious, you know. A hush settled until the only sound was embers collapsing. Mira whispered, "Someone already did." Blake, loft, laboratory. Wednesday, 3:45 a.m. Night surrendered to lab lights. Nitrogen hoods exhaled like patient lungs. Mira floated the charred scrap in a methyl cellulose bath, wicked solvents through blotter stacks, then locked it in a freeze dryer. Ice crystals sublimated, leaving cellulose lattices open like cathedral vaults. Leo guided the wafer under hyperspectral lenses, 365 nanometers to 1,000 nanometers. On screen, ultraviolet halos unfurled into ghost letters. Bullet tore through Colonel J.D. McAllister's heart. A second slice glowed. I, Samuel Clemens, witnessed Boone fire first. Leo's fingers danced over genealogical software. Riley Boone, great-grandson to Jeremiah Boone. Jeremiah owned slaughter yards, shipped beef on McAllister rails. They merged business and hatred. 2 corporations, 1 feud. Mira exhaled. A century-and-a-half blood vendetta hiding in library stacks. Dorian paced the catwalk connecting mezzanines. Page 88 stops mid-sentence. If Twain named accomplices, those missing leaves hold dynamite. Clara's phone pinged. Envelope emoji, no sender. Truth wants daylight. Noon ferry to Vallejo. GPS pin enclosed. Dorian gazed out the window where dawn painted the bay pewter. The story keeps pulling us waterward. Fine, let's follow the current. SFPD holding cell, Hall of Justice. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Grey walls, stale coffee. Boone sat behind plexiglass. His cuffs jingled when he twitched. Someone else pulling strings? Ortega asked. Boone shrugged. Check money markets. McAllister trust stock dumped last week, right before the leak. Somebody hedged the scandal. I'm not the only parasite in his bloodstream. Clara watched his eyes, restless, shark bright. The Mustangs parked at impound. Boone's gaze softened 1 watt. Keys in the glove box. Consider it closure. Clara didn't blink. Truth is closure. She turned, boots echoing down the corridor. Vallejo Ferry, mid-bay. Wednesday, 12 p.m. Whitecaps slapped the hull like wet applause. Seagulls corkscrewed overhead, screams snatched by wind. On the sparsely populated upper deck, Evie Archer stepped from behind a lifeboat, bruise on her cheek fading yellow-violet. I sent the email, she confessed. Boone rented a Bancroft locker using a stolen faculty badge. I found the typescript during a routine audit. I scanned everything, metadata, spectral maps, but he broke in that night, pistol-whipped me, and fled with the original. She handed Dorian a ruggedized laptop. The 5 missing pages glowed, charred edges, but words intact, thanks to panorama stitching. Leo pinched, zoomed. Type slug bounce identical. Twain authenticity confirmed. And look, he names 2 deputies bribed to hush eyewitnesses. Below, Boone, somehow freed on bail through a midnight bondsman, skulked along the lower deck, duffel banging his knee. Ortega's earlier intel hadn't caught the loophole. Mira murmured, Boone at 6 o'clock, and his bag screams accelerant. Dorian thumbed his comm. Contain, but no civilians hurt. Engine room, catwalk. Hot diesel breath and oil stung their eyes. Boone spun toward the clatter of their boots, brandishing a butane micro-torch and a sloshing gallon of acetone. Turquoise flame licked the air. "Back off, or I fry your backups," he snarled, sweat carving silver on grime. Dorian raised empty hands. "Digital lives in triplicate. 8 clouds, 7 time zones. Flame can't touch the sky." "Then I torch historians," Boone hurled acetone. Vapor whooshed, hitting railings. Flames bloomed orange, but Mira, years of lab safety drilled into muscle memory, flung a Nomex blanket. Combustion starved in seconds. Boone bolted up an iron ladder toward daylight. Clara followed, Glock drawn. Ferry bow, open deck. Wind whipped their coats horizontal. Boone grabbed a tourist's phone, thumbed livestream. "McAllister bought murder," he screamed into cyberspace. "Wake up, America!" Clara noted 2,400 viewers ticking upward. "Free press is watching," she called, barrel lowered. "Don't add a murder charge." Boone brandished a .38. Dorian edged forward, voice velvet. "Riley, every lens on this boat is rolling. You fire, you immortalize cowardice." Clara's warning shot pinged off a cleat. Sparks jumped like nervous fireflies. Boone flinched, shoes sliding on spray-slick steel. The revolver skittered overboard, plunk lost to surf. A Coast Guard cutter had shadowed the ferry. Now it nudged alongside. Ortega vaulted the gap, Kevlar vest snapping. She tackled Boone, cuffs locking in a blur. "Nice of you to live-stream probable cause," she said, breathless. Boone sagged. Digital hearts pumped angry emojis across the phone he'd dropped. Irony, Clara thought, could taste metallic. Coast Guard interview room, Treasure Island. Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Metal walls rang with engine hum. Boone hunched at a steel table, wrists cuffed to a D-ring. "McAllister shorted his foundation," he said, voice hollow. "He planned to reveal the memoir himself, claim noble contrition, let stock crash, then buy it back through shell core. His grin flickered. "I accelerated the truth." Dorian jotted notes, expression unreadable. Outside, gulls wheeled, indifferent judges. San Francisco Superior Court, emergency injunction hearing. Wednesday, 5 p.m. Wood-paneled courtroom, stained glass skylights. Judge Vasquez, silver hair cropped, flipped through exhibits. "Petitioner seeks destruction of manuscript," she asked. McAllister's attorney adjusted rimless specs. "Yes, Your Honor, on grounds of defamatory fraud, potential to incite vandalism against charitable assets." Dorian rose, voice calm as archival stacks. Defense Exhibit B, DNA from Colonel J.D. McAllister's blood matches living descendant. Exhibit C, hyperspectral authentication signed by Professor Giles Harrow and Bancroft conservators. Suppression equals cultural vandalism. Gavel cracked. Injunction denied. Manuscript enters public trust under immediate archival custody. Court thanks the parties for preserving state heritage. Reporters surged like water breaching a lock, headlines assembling in real time on social media tickers. Bancroft Library, press event. Thursday, 9 a.m. Low UV floodlights bathed glass cases. The memoir, edges now stabilized, glowed like stained bone. A holographic Professor Harrow, 3/4 scale but twice as ecstatic, proclaimed, "Behold the earliest full-twain typescript, a lens onto violent post-bellum capitalism and the uneasy birth of the machine age." Charles McAllister stepped forward, cane tapping marble. "Let posterity judge my kin," he declared, signing a deed of gift with trembling hand. "I will endow scholarship so future scholars confront truth, not hush money." Applause rippled, camera shutters clicked like cicadas. Outside, civic sirens mixed with foghorns, a duet of old and new. Epilogue. Blake and Associates Loft. Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Twilight bruised the skyline a royal purple. Clara eased the restored Mustang beside the freight elevator. Engine purred like a satisfied cat bathed in neon. She leaned against the hood, arms folded. Seems some ghosts enjoy being driven fast, she mused, eyes softer than usual. Leo perched on a rolling stool, manipulating a holographic splatter model suspended in midair. Crimson vectors radiated from a digital recreation of the typescript. Trajectory puts Jeremiah Boone 3 feet left of sworn testimony, angled downward. If that's not ambush, I'll eat my GPU. Mira poured chai into enamel mugs, the cardamom and black pepper scent twined with machine oil and old paper. History rewrites itself one cellulose fiber at a time, she said, handing cups around. Dorian, silhouette framed by bay lights, slid page 1 of the memoir into a forensic courier pouch. Outside, foghorns mourned across water. He gently extinguished the desk lamp, a warm pool of light collapsing to darkness. Ink fades, he whispered. Bullet holes rust, but stories, those bleed forever. He straightened, pocketing the pouch. And somewhere out there, he gestured toward shelves bristling with unsolved codices. Another orphaned page is waiting. Let's give it a home. Shelves seemed to inhale as if ancient boards had lungs. The city breathed fog and possibility. Down on the Embarcadero, cargo chains rattled another tambourine rhythm, beckoning. The Codex Chronicles were far from over. Tonight was merely a page turn. Dorian felt the old, electric thrum behind his ribs, curiosity sharpening into purpose. He smiled into the shadows and spoke the vow that guided Blake and Associates, 4 words uttered like sacrament. On to the next. And the lights of San Francisco, restless and salt-kissed, winked back as if they, too, had secrets ready to surface, waiting for guardians brave enough to set them free.